Ed Winters in Italy. Thank you for coming here and thank you for being on Veggie channel today. I see from your background that you have done quite a lot of things. You started your activity in 2014, as far as I can see. What was your first input to become so active in this world?
I'd gone vegan, and this was a decade ago now, and I realized that I felt I needed to speak up and say something for animals because I'd become so passionate about veganism myself, but I realized there were all of these people all around me who had never really heard about veganism. So the first thing that I did was actually a YouTube channel. So I started filming videos at home. I went to some vegan meetups and some events similar to the festival we're at today. And started meeting other vegans, speaking with them, and then uploading content online, talking about why people should be vegan. And that was really the first thing I started to do to try and influence people.
As far as I can see, very quickly you became popular for the quality of your speech. The way you speak to people seems to be quite effective. What do you think is your best particularity of your character?
You're right. At the beginning, the talking that I did with people, the speeches, the debates, that was definitely the content that people liked the most and people resonated with and took the most from. I think for me, when I started those conversations, I realized that from my perspective, to be effective, you have to listen to people, not agree with them, but listen to them, try and understand what their arguments are, and then you can effectively respond to those arguments. So for me, I'm not sure if there's one particular thing, but I think what I've always tried to prioritize is allowing people to express themselves, to be honest, because then I can be a better activist because I can truly respond to what they're saying by listening to them. And also I think sometimes vegans have a reputation that we're angry, militant, and judgmental, and even though all of those things can feel very valid because there's so many reasons why we should be angry, when we're talking to people, it's really important that we don't present ourselves in that way because instantly we'll put people off us. They won't like us, they won't find us relatable, they'll look for any excuse to ignore us. So if we can listen, be open-minded to having a good conversation with them and not become angry or judgmental, then that means that we can establish a better connection with the people.
I like this. I like the way you interact with people. It's actually what we like the most in all these years of our filming around the world. We found some people too much passion or not effective with the people. They don't establish a link the way you do. And I think you have come, tell me if I'm right, you have come here in Italy to present your book, which actually is a kind of a way to explain the way you act with people. Tell me something more about your book.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So my second book is called How to Argue with a Meat Eater. And it's all about how we as vegans can become better activists, better communicators, more effective. And so the first part of the book is sort of explaining how I approach conversations, what my perspective is, what sort of tips and techniques I like to use to try and get that link, as you were saying just a moment ago. And then the rest of the book is looking at all of the arguments. Why do people argue against veganism? How do we respond to those arguments? So hopefully by the end of the book, you've got all the responses you need and some tips and techniques to become better at communicating those responses to the people that need to hear them, let's say. So yes, exactly, that's what the book's all about. Hopefully it helps people.
But this is not your first book. The first one was This is Vegan Propaganda. What is basically the difference between the previous book?
Yeah, so in This is Vegan Propaganda, the book is more aimed at a non-vegan audience, in the sense of this is a book that you could gift to a friend, a family member, someone who is maybe interested in veganism but doesn't really understand why we're vegan. Maybe they've got some ideas, it's good for animals, better for the planet, but what are the real details in that? And so for me, this is Vegan Propaganda is really that book of just really going into those details, whereas How to Argue with the Meat Eater is a little bit more catered for non-vegans in the sense of how can we express ourselves? How can we be more effective? And so there are overlapping themes. Obviously, I talk about similar issues, but in How to Argue with a Meat Eater, I go into a lot more detail on the specific arguments that we're used to hearing.
I see.
The food chain, animals eat other animals, plants have feelings, tofu turns men into women, all of these ridiculous arguments that we hear.
Yes.
And that's what the difference is.
So let's go a little bit into the details. What is the most common mistake vegans make when arguing with meat eaters?
I think that the most common mistake can be that we tell someone how we feel rather than asking them how they feel. And what I mean by that is, nobody likes to be told how they should be living or what they should be doing, and they don't like the idea that someone's lecturing them about how they're a bad person or how what they're doing is terrible. No one likes that, vegan or not, right? But what we do like is to have the opportunity to be able to understand ourselves better. And so when I talk to people, one of the things I try to do is ask lots of questions, because I'm less interested in them understanding what my beliefs are, but in them understanding what their beliefs are. Because I think that when it comes to veganism, people don't ever think about it. And so they've never really considered what they think about animals. And I think that by and large, most people in society have a huge hypocrisy or a contradiction where actually they do agree with the merits of veganism, because we all want to be nicer to animals, we all want to live in a more sustainable way, we all want to look after our own health, not have more pandemics, not have bacteria that are resistant to our antibiotics. We all want these things, but we haven't yet understood that veganism is those things. And so I think if we can ask people questions about their beliefs and their views, we can reveal to them that they already probably agree with the ethical, environmental and health components that veganism encapsulates.
What do you think meat eaters are most scared about?
That's a really good question. I think that word scared is a really good word, because I think there is a lot of anxiety and worry and fear, because you're changing what you eat. You presume that you're going to enjoy food less because you like how animal products taste. So no longer eating them means I'm not going to enjoy food anymore. You think it's going to be really inconvenient. It's going to cause lots of problems. I think that the number one thing is people are scared of change. And that goes beyond veganism. And I think the thing that specifically relates to veganism is food pleasure. And I think that's what people most fear giving up. I love how steak tastes. I love how cheese tastes. I'm never going to eat those foods again. And while we as vegans know that plant-based food is delicious, we do have good alternatives, people don't necessarily realize that at that moment, and they become so emotionally attached to the food that they've been consuming that they feel like they're going to lose some of their identity, or they're going to lose something that has made them who they are by no longer eating it. And we need to get people to realize that's not the case.
I don't know why, but listening to you, I'm constantly thinking about Gary Yourofsky. Gary Yourofsky. Yeah. But you are very different personalities. What do you think his communication is different with your communication?
Well, I suppose his communication is probably more confrontational. Maybe doesn't touch on some of those things I was referencing earlier about being more understanding, listening. I think he's the sort of person that sort of from a verbal perspective sort of grabs you by the shoulders and shakes you, right? Not literally, but through how he communicates. It's kind of like that abrupt, oh wow, yeah, this is terrible. Whereas I suppose I'm more of the person that would shake your hand and say, please, let's talk. And it's a little bit less confrontational, let's say. Okay. But, it's different approaches resonate with people differently. And it's not that there's a one-size-fits-all. It's not that there's this one thing, and if you say it like this and always say it this way, it will work for everyone. People respond differently to different approaches, and I think that's why it's always good to have an open mind to what reaches people most effectively, but in different ways.
Okay, I would suggest to our viewers to go and buy and read very carefully this new book of Ed Winters, which title is How to Argue with Eat Meaters and Win Every Time, because it's a new way of communication. I would say it's the right way of communication according to us. And I would like to ask you as a last question, if you can give an advice to new, younger animal rights fighters. What advice would you give to them?
I think that it's really important that we remain positive and optimistic. And the problem is, when you start activism, or when you've been an activist for years, you are so aware of all the terrible things that are happening. And it can make you look at the world and feel very isolated, very angry at people, and it can make you feel like you're not connected with the wider world around you. And I think that sense of isolation can be really damaging. So I believe that when we are activists, we should be, of course, we should be angry at what's happening. We should be frustrated. We should be, we should feel all of these very righteous emotions with what's happening. But at the same time, if we allow ourselves to become so swallowed up by that, we can become anxious and lonely and sad and worse. And so I think it's really important that we try to remain optimistic, try to remain positive, have fun as well, go out and do enjoyable things, eat delicious vegan food, hang out with the vegan people, and just live a life as normal as you can, as well as being that passionate, committed activist. Because without that, sometimes it can become really hard to just exist in the world around us. But it's so important that we remain optimistic, because that can motivate us for years to come.
Okay, very good. Remain optimistic. Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Ed, for coming here for this interview and for the work you are doing, and hope to see you soon again in Italy.
Thank you, me too, grazie.
Prego.